Murder Drones is very fun.
That's everyone!
That was an actual child. This show is unhinged, and I love that for it. You know, we might be on the cusp of a golden age for independent animation. If people have the vision, the time, and all the money, anything is possible. We get blessed with some just fire TV shows, with Murder Drones definitely being one of my favorites that I've discovered recently, as it's basically tailor-made for my sick sense of humor. Hey, Dad! Telling the story of a group of robots who recently gained sentience, they celebrate discovering their own mortality by avoiding it, as humanity has sent a group of extermination drones to wipe them out. Created by Liam Vickers and produced by Glitch Productions, Murder Drones is real good, combining fun characters, funnier writing, and an ever-expanding mystery. With genuinely unnerving horror elements. You can never really predict where this show is going, and it's just an engaging watch. So if you're wondering, yes, I'm telling you guys to go frickin' watch it. It's just on YouTube, it's literally a click away. This video though, is mostly me just playing review catch-up. So yeah, there's gonna be a ton of spoilers, and this is a show you really wanna go into blind. It's a blast, the main character is Jimmy Neutron with angst, and yes, they're ships, naturally.
Not like you killed anyone.
Oh, no, I definitely...
Kidding! Just avoid another whole spire.
First off, when we talk about the pilot, we have to talk about the absolute terror that is the show's main character, Uzi. Uzi at the start of the series feels like she would have been the villain or rival of any other show. Arrogant, antisocial, and single-mindedly driven to kill something. It's only thanks to the fact that her enemies are attempting genocide that she gets to be the hero of her own show. However, besides that villainous facade, we quickly begin to unpack the angsty mess of issues that is Uzi, as we really discover what makes her tick and the anxiety and fears that lie beneath. As she is forced to grow up in a vault her entire life just waiting to die, her mom is already resting in pieces, her classmates are almost as bad as her, and her dad straight up sucks.
Dad?
You kind of get in the pilot alone why Uzi is so hostile. You get enough moments of vulnerability to see that she isn't as on top of things as she pretends to be. With her struggling to deal with something as small as having a crush on a boy, who I'm now just gonna call the runner-up, for reasons. Uzi is great, she is fun, she is an absolute joy to watch. Though I will say though, for as much as I like this show's sense of humor, I do feel like it was written for people who have TV tropes on favorite, as they name drop tropes more than me, and I do this for a living.
That was the lamest heel-face turn in history. I'm an angsty teen fad, bite me. Like that before.
I'm fine with it, but I can definitely see how this might be a bit too on the nose for some people. For me, it adds to the performative part of Uzi's personality, as she is trying so hard to be cynical that even when she's in a dangerous situation, she refuses to acknowledge it and does so by directly calling out the trope that's happening. Uzi is an adorable angsty psycho who is way too into violence. But as the show goes on, you realize that she is somehow one of the more peaceful members of the team. Which brings us to the best of best boys, N.
Did you just slap me with that arm?
Holy crap, it talks.
N is great. One of the initial murder drones who have been terrorizing the workers for years, killing their wives, husbands, children, just about anything that moves, and living in a nest made out of their victims. The murder drones are hyped up so much to be the most terrifying, ungodly things imaginable. They are basically angels of death, and N just completely shatters the idea of the murder drones being these unholy abominations.
And yet, I still feel nothing.
Like, the other two are freaks, but N is a sweetheart. While Uzi is drenching herself in cynicism, N is sincere and open to almost a fault, refusing to believe the worst in his co-workers even as they continually mistreat him. But it's thanks to meeting Uzi and head trauma that the two are able to gain some perspective, with Uzi realizing that the murder drones are just as much a tool for the humans as the worker drones are. They are both fully disposable in the grand scheme of things. While N, meanwhile, after he realizes his error,
are we the baddies?
With the two of them then coming together as they have to stop the other two drones. As Uzi accidentally let them in, and N questioning the company led to his boss trying to kill him. But despite the impalement and near-death experience, Uzi finally has someone to believe in her, with the two stopping his co-workers in a dope action scene that does, and this is just a show in general, I feel like the show is abusing the lens flare option. It's good, but there is just so many. I almost thought, oh, I can make a drinking game out of this, but 5 minutes after I thought of that rule, I realized that I would literally die. But overall, the animation is going off. This show is stellar in how it's able to capture just little details that you wouldn't expect, from the subtle things like light bouncing off the characters as they are made out of metal, to the lighting just highlighting the mood in every scene, to even its use of distortion and particle effects to enhance what would otherwise be just standard anime powers. The level of polish on this show is insane. You would show this to any casual viewer and they'd assume this is a fully funded, syndicated production. It's crazy how good it is. From the fights to the direction, it's all going off, and most importantly, Murder Drones as a show is keenly aware of the strengths and weaknesses of CGI. It's not one of those shows where it feels like it's trying to replicate a certain style. The people behind it know what they want to achieve, and does so without ever feeling like it's reaching for something that they don't have the time or the resources for. Though again, it is the writing that really makes this show a winner for me.
N, you're worthless and terrible. And if the company allowed it, I would straight up kill you myself.
Jay's awesome.
Not every joke is a winner, but it's nailing the vibe it's going for and covering its ass when it walks back an idea.
Let's go, N. Everyone here can bite me.
I'm back, bitches!
So yeah, episode 1 ends with Uzi and N ditching the robot workers, going into self-imposed exile on account of her dad leaving her to die. Which, damn. If she didn't have issues before, she definitely has them now. And she exiled herself assuming he'd kick her out anyway, as this was kind of her fault, so she dipped first to start her new goal in life, killing all humans. Failing to get the Murderbot's scuffed ship back up and running, she has to deal with a far more sassier and less psycho V. But in episode 2, she immediately goes back home, re-establishing the bunker as the default setting for the show, with everyone just kinda having to be cool with the whole hang out with the Murderbot situation. This though is the episode where I do feel like the show really starts to work for me, while also highlighting a few of its weaknesses as well. As the biggest strength of this show is when things start to get scary. The direction for the show is always competent, but when they start going into horror vibes, it gets inspired. And despite the fact that the show is about robots, body horror is a huge thing here. While the previous episode did have some intense moments, I wouldn't really call them scary. Intimidating maybe, but as an audience, we're never really unsettled by what we're watching. Especially once people start dying, they start dropping like flies. You get very desensitized to death very quickly. Uzi got impaled twice in the first episode alone. You kinda have to expect the limbs to go flying at this point. So when the show does get you with violence, it's either an abrupt joke or leading into the horrifying imagery to disturb you, which are both of the show's strengths. They may be robots, but oil does a pretty good job at looking like blood. And when you see a human hand and a robot with fleshy looking growths on it, you immediately clock that something more is going on here with this plot. That this isn't just a robot kills things show. This episode really changes the game for where the series is going. As what was once a simple revenge story now expands into one about exploring the bigger mysteries of what really are the murder drones. Who built them? What is a singularity? What the hell is going on with these things? The questions start piling up, and that mystery is what really makes you want to check out the next episode to see what happens next. As N and Uzi do return to the vault, accompanied by a very funny apology letter.
Oh, all right. Just don't do it again. Get in here, you goobs.
Everyone has lost family to this man, and they just let him in. It's great. Though just to touch back on that being desensitized to death thing, the robots in the vault are just as blasé about people dying as we are, but they are still fully sentient beings who desperately don't want to die. So that kind of starts to create a bit of a dissonance that the show doesn't really know how to deal with yet. As this show is casually killing people constantly, then no one will sweat it or worry about the consequences. As again, V shot a teenager to establish dominance, but then she's just having fun with these kids seconds later, and no one gives a shit that they just watched a murder, or how at the end of the episode V lies about eating all the students Uzi killed, with the teacher just shrugging it off. And like, him I get. He's a teacher, he doesn't give a shit about his students. That completely tracks. But are all these kids orphans then? Is there no one who would be sad or angry at their passing? Or is just every robot made communally, and like the kids with parents are the exception? As these robots are capable of mourning. Doll from episode 3 is motivated to avenge her parents. So it is a thing. People do get angry, yet the nominal good guys are dropping people left and right, and it's never really touched upon. I don't want them to tone down their kill count, but this community of robots never feels big enough that it should be able to sustain at least a dozen deaths per episode, especially without seeing anyone being affected. If they were rebuilding the motherfuckers, sure, yeah, that works. But everyone mostly seems to stay dead, and no one ever sweats it. This isn't a deal breaker. It just narratively feels like something that the show has to keep ignoring so the premise can still happen. We didn't see the genocide that they caused beforehand, so you can kind of write that off as a bit of a joke. But once you see it happen, and it keeps happening, and death in this show, while a joke, is still treated semi-seriously, it does feel like we have to address this at some point. Overall though, really enjoyed the Centipede Monster episode. Uzi and N just continue to be fun together.
I want a freaking ninja star.
This monster is terrifying, with the scenes of it luring its victims being delightfully messed up. But the episode isn't slacking emotionally, as Uzi is left properly traumatized by the whole experience, questioning what are the disassemblers, and after seeing a hologram of her dad get killed, she is now willing to come home. Which... yeah, I'm just gonna get this out of the way. I don't give a shit about Uzi's daddy issues. I care about her, but her dad could drop dead and I would not care in the slightest. Yes, he really is just a guy. He's not an over-the-top monster like some of the other animated parents I've talked about on this channel. He's just a bad, neglectful dad, who also left his daughter to die. And while the show makes me understand why she still cares about him, I'm never sold on him being in anything. As yes, the man who's obsessed with doors would lock away every uncomfortable part of his life. I'm sure he'll have a big redemption moment later. I just haven't had a scene with him where I don't think I can just skip it. Uzi works as a girl with daddy issues, but honestly, this girl can just ditch her dad and start living her best life. So Uzi is dealing with being infected by something called the Singularity. Having no idea what it means or how it fully connects to everything else going on, her dad decided to help by not helping. Hiding all of her conspiracy board stuff, he hires the popular girls to drag her to prom, only for this to turn out to be a somewhat convoluted revenge plot by Doll to kill V. Just to explain how wild this murder plan is, it involves killing every nominee for prom king and queen. Lizzie, Doll's best friend and present alpha bitch, just being blasé and going along with killing all of these classmates. It also involves convincing V to show up to kill everybody, and then having her instead be crowned prom queen by default, all so that Doll can use her powers to kill her in revenge for her parents. She also speaks solely in Russian and has the same singularity powers as Uzi. Yeah, it's just Robot Carrie. 10 out of 10 episode. They're an item, and I'm buying it. Rip the runner-up. Truly, this episode slapped, and this might be my favorite episode so far. The music and action are going off. The show does a really good job at making essentially magical powers feel at least somewhat sci-fi. Like she's levitating objects, replicating them, teleporting them, coming back from the dead. This is some exorcism shit, but it always feels consistent with the world. But again, the mystery goes deeper, as whatever horrifying stuff has happened to Doll is now apparently Uzi's fate as well. As in the scene that if this wasn't robots, you could not show this on TV, as we see Doll's red-soaked room, filled with dismembered bodies. Her parents' corpses are just set out on the table, with inset box and oils covering the entire room, with Uzi being tempted at the sight of oil. Throw in a final warning from Doll, letting us know that whatever is happening to Uzi, it's just the beginning, and it's going to get worse. Horror and comedy are this show's bread and butter, but it continues to strike gold with N and Uzi's dynamic, as this girl desperately needs a friend in her life. As she's undergoing character growth, she's not just the loner she was in the pilot. She now believes that all drones need to work together, or else the humans might actually win. And this episode does a great job at padding out the extended cast. V is no longer chained up with N, and she is just a delight. I do kind of feel like her and Lizzie have a bit too similar personalities. Like there is a version of the show in my head where you could just combine their character, but they are very fun together, so it's working for me. Plus with the stinger for this episode being the reveal that a human has landed on the planet with another copy of Jay, which settled a bet for me. Jay is just Robot Asuka from Evangelion. Like, am I crazy? Or is that just the vibe completely? Whatever, shit is about to get real, just not in the way we expected.
Does it at least have pictures?
It doesn't. I checked.
Okay, final real complaint of the video. Let's talk about the character designs. I think it is very fun that the show committed to having them all be essentially the same robot. The murder drones are their own special class. They have their own look. But for everyone else though, sharing the exact same body type, with the only real exceptions being their clothes, hair, and a little bit of height. Making them all visually distinct is a challenge. And the fact that I can recognize so many of them is an achievement. That said, outside of the main cast, I do struggle to tell the rest of these extras apart. Episode 4 is a field trip to a camp with a bunch of Uzi's classmates, and my actual reaction to them showing up and dying was just...
Who was that guy?
And part of the problem is that the show's lighting alternates between dark grays, dark reds, or even a really dark blue. The lighting really leads to colors feeling muted, so the minor characters do tend to blend together, like even more than they already are. So when they all popped up and started getting murdered, I couldn't remember if I had actually seen these characters before, or if they had just appeared for this episode, which I think is a little bit of a problem. Hell, in the second episode, I straight up thought Uzi's dad died. He's the first victim, also wore a mustache, except no. That clearly wasn't him, he didn't have the goggles. And he also had a name tag that I must have missed when I was watching. The main cast, again, mostly spared from this. Everyone else though, I could not tell you at a glance. If this was just black and white, I would struggle to tell you who was who. I feel like the fix for this is really just something as simple as spicing up the headwear. There's too many hard hats and beanies, and I feel like we can just add some more variety there. Now back to the horror. So continuing to make Uzi the best character, having accidentally dragged most of her class out to the woods so that she can check out a lead-on doll, Uzi, despite saving everyone's lives, is still being relegated to being an outcast, with the majority of people not even remembering her name. They're terrified of her, but she's kind of just that girl. In fact, there's so much anti-her, they end up becoming pro-murderers, immediately befriending N and J on account of Uzi claiming that they're all friends. This flares up ye old insecurities, as she now feels like she's losing her friends.
So, my friend wants to know if you killed her family and are single.
Okay, it's mostly about N, but going off on her own, those feelings keep building up, with V not helping.
Anne's made friends with rocks, by the way. He'll move on just fine.
Then in case you thought whatever was happening to Uzi might be a good thing, she starts to overheat and obsessing over oil, and that eventually spirals into her killing her classmates and eating them, transforming into a creature that looks suspiciously like a disassembler drone. This old murder demon look is very cool, as I don't feel like it's fully organic, but this show has mentioned nanites, so I feel like this is a nanite organic type synthesis, which leads into the zombie imagery we see later. The horror vibes are excellent, even if I don't know who these people are. Like all the episodes, this one really does a good job at tying it back to Uzi's struggle. As yes, there are some messed up things happening. V knows way more than she lets on. The nightmare fuel is spectacular, but at the end of the day, the personal struggle of the characters always ends up shining through. In Uzi's case, it's her going from feeling like she's not alone anymore to feeling like everyone is going to abandon her. And that leads her to go feral till N shows up, and suddenly all of her problems melt away. As he lets her know it's okay, things are terrifying, like genuinely terrifying. But when they're together, things stop being so scary, and N is undergoing his own growth, starting to be more assertive, less of a doormat that he was in the pilot, standing up to V, protecting Uzi.
Easy there, buddy. Ow. Up we go.
I love the stork, and even V is steadily growing as a person. This show keeps getting better and better with each episode, and I am loving it. I feel like the best thing about Murder Drones is how it just continues to build off of each episode. The characters get more and more interesting, the mystery keeps building as we try to figure out what's going on. What the hell is happening to Uzi? How does it relate to the drone's past? The story is just incredibly engaging. So if you're not hooked by episode 1, episode 2 or 3 is gonna have you locked in. There's some minor issues here and there, but overall I think this whole thing is stellar. The whole team behind Murder Drones at Glitch is fucking killing it, and I can't wait to see where the story goes. But let me know what you all think of the show. I'm definitely thinking about doing more in-depth videos on the various parts of the show that interest me. Yes, parts.
Mr. Dorman.
Despite me, maybe.
You know, I was really hoping he would just be dead. Alright, today we are talking about episode 5 of Murder Drones. This is just gonna be my general thoughts, theories, and minor details that I noticed in N's haunted house memories. We discovered a ton of info. Some of it we didn't already infer, But honestly, this was a fun episode. Though I'm not gonna lie, that ending was filthy. Now, I really like the opening of this episode, specifically all the horror elements around N, as this boy is the best boy and just pieces out of there than deal with any of this exorcism nonsense. Like, it's crazy how adorable this kid is. He is a highlight of the show. Voiced by Angel Dust of all people. There is not a bad circuit in his body. Even when Jay's leaving him mean notes, he doesn't care. He believes the best in people. He's always kind, and that's what leads him to be the big brother / caretaker of this episode's biggest reveal, Sin.
Perhaps you'd like to attend the gala with me.
She scares me. So let's take our first detour and just discuss Sin. Now keep in mind, I literally just binged this series a week ago. Meaning I have not been waiting for the reveal of this character for as long as longtime fans. But I do find Sin to mostly be a creepy delight. From her AI voice to how she hides behind N or narrates what she's doing, you immediately pick up the fact that there's something not fully right with her. With my general understanding of what the murder drones are, being that they were all fixed or built by Tessa using the parts from the graveyard, which we know as her mom does imply that they all came from the robot mass grave outside.
We will not entertain your dumpster pits.
Tessa treats them like friends / pets, who her parents tolerate almost as much as Tessa. Oh, don't worry, we're gonna get to Tessa. Now for Sin, I think the reason that she is different from the rest is alluded to by that zombie drone tape, as we get brief cuts of it in the beginning. The summary being, zombie drones are not whatever the hell Uzi and Doll are. It's actually more of a broad term for all the robots who are improperly disposed of, with the experience leaving their data corrupted, with there being a small 0.01% chance of them coming back online. So my working idea is that N, J, and V were all properly disposed of. Sin never was. She was a zombie drone that was aware of what happened to her, being semi-alive when Tessa tried to fix her, but the software corruption still stuck, leading to her semi-impaired motor skills and speech pattern, which you have to admit is pretty zombie-like based on how she shuffles around with her head tilted to the side. And is such a good brother to this girl, he's doing everything he can to protect her, just downplaying, like, yeah, they don't want us, but I'm still gonna be nice and try to ask. N is a protector of the little people, and I like this girl. She is an adorable little psycho. Won't lie though, she also suffers from the same problem as the rest of the episode. They're fun, but they feel incomplete. Let me explain. This whole episode is built around teasing information, giving us some backstory on the murder drone's past, how it connects with Sin and the absolute solver. But rather than giving us the next piece of the puzzle, it kind of feels like to me we're getting more implications than anything else. Like, think about it. This whole episode is built around N uncovering a repressed memory about what's in the basement. We finally get there, and what do we actually learn? That Sin was the one who wiped his memory? The implication that the murder drone's ability are based on Sin's modifications, not the other way around? That she was experimenting with dead bodies? It's a lot of cool nightmare fuel, but it's nothing really concrete. There's like no amazing payoff to it. And like, where would they go after this if Doll and Tessa hadn't jumped back into the story? They'd go nowhere, as this is kind of a dead end. Unless this reveal pressured V into telling more, the story is just kind of there. So everything we find in the basement is just kind of underwhelming. And another thing that's kind of undercutting this whole episode is that you pretty much know everything that's gonna happen in the first 4 minutes. No, for real. By the 4-minute mark, we unambiguously establish that Sin is the absolute solver. She has the exact same voice, and we see the centipede body. And then she proceeds to claim she wants to go to the ball, and in her own words,
The flesh demands invitation.
which at that point you just know there's gonna be a massacre. Everybody who isn't the main character here is gonna die. So while the visuals are fun, it's a haunted house, it's great. But there are very few surprises to be found here, with not enough new info for it to be satisfying, though it is exciting. Overall, this episode is kind of weird to me, as I feel like it's missing the emotional arc that the previous episodes had that made them work. Uzi struggles with being alone, or being scared of losing N. This is the gel that makes these episodes feel satisfying, even as we get that slow drip of reveals and horror moments. But this episode is missing that. N is pretty much the main character here, but we're dealing with a past version of him. This is not our N. it's effectively a different character. It's like there's no really room for him to grow or change, or for us to really like get invested in his journey, as what he's doing is not what actually happened that night. I feel like this episode could work better if it played more into En not wanting to confront his past. Lean into how early on En was resisting and ignoring all of Uzi's attempts to railroad him into the basement. That would make his decision to finally face what happened narratively satisfying. It'd give a point to the episode than implying information. Instead, it's mostly Uzi having to pressure this old version of En into it, without him making the choice on his own that he needs this. We don't get that classic dream world dilemma where he wants to stay here, but realizes that he has to give it up to grow as a person. So while we all are getting all these fun horror moments, all this great nightmare fuel, it doesn't feel as cohesive as I think it needs to be. Like the closest thing we have to someone sacrificing what they want to get what they need is Uzi letting Doll take the roach key. But I can't really take that seriously since Doll's role in the story is...
Surprise, motherfucker!
She pops into this thing so abruptly then just dips. I kind of hate it, as it really just feels like she's just here to set up a cliffhanger and get the MacGuffin. Uzi giving that thing up isn't the gut punch it needs to be, as she's barely in the episode, so for her to give up finding answers to save her friends, that doesn't really hit. We'd really have to be shown that she was obsessing over finding answers and jeopardizing her friend's safety. Or hell, we could have had V chasing after and hunting them in the memory be the actual V, who in this logic is trying to protect En from the truth, and it's his constant kindness that makes her relent and starts dropping the deets on what happened. There's just a bunch of little ways I think they could have really strengthened this episode, as to me this kind of feels like the weakest one so far. It's fun, but it's exciting rather than satisfying. And this episode didn't have to reveal everything. Without that emotional arc for a character, the reveals that we get are not a big enough payoff in my mind. Like to me, this episode just screams theory video goldmine. Also, as a final nitpick, I do think the framing device of this being En's memories isn't doing this episode too many favors, as while it does wonders to create stakes and have a more active story than just watching the past play out, this being a memory En is replaying with a monster trying to erase it kinda causes some instances where I'm not sure if an event actually happened or if it was just a memory being tampered with the program, as the giant bloody angel behind V just disappears. It's there, then it's not. So that flash makes me second guess what actually happened in some of these scenes. Was Sin's centipede body really just hanging around the house, or was that just a corruption from the program? It's really cool both times, but it muddles what little info we actually get, as we can't be entirely sure when certain events happened or how they actually played out. As newsflash, V's decapitated body is in Sin's lab. I mean, this whole scene either took place before the events of the gala, or it happened afterwards, and we can't be sure which. But that's enough of me being a bummer. Let's talk about the shit I loved from this thing, because there is a lot of it. Starting with the animation. As a casual viewer, you will never really be able to fully appreciate the little details in this show till you're trying to make a thumbnail out of it, and it has driven you to madness. As this show is beautiful, but it is a bitch to rip shots from. From the use of soft focus to guide your eyes in the scene, to the subtle lighting and particle effects that merge the CGI body with the environments, this show is so good at compositing that it looks weird when you cut the character out of the scene. It makes making the thumbnails very difficult. But that's a me problem, and you can't argue with these results. Murder Drones is accomplishing a crazy amount of work for an independent show. As you can kind of imagine something like this, if it was a short film that was like 5 minutes long that someone took a year to make. They are dropping 20-minute episodes on the reg, and just like Hell of a Boss, we just gotta salute that. Kinda like the comedy.
Ow! We were buddies!
Like I said in my previous video, this show excels at handling horror and comedy. When it wants to be terrifying, it goes there. But I also think it knows when to let horror happen and when it's time to interrupt it for a joke, as there are moments where you do need to line up the mood, and it's okay to undercut some of the tension. Other times, you just gotta scar the children, and the show is able to accomplish this by alternating between scary moments and those that are just intense. And I feel like that triple switch up is what this show excels at the best. Also, always gotta say it, Uzi is a little murder gremlin who I want in everything. The joke about her using name and her trying to downplay her crush on En slayed me. This girl, she's in love, and I love that for her, and I can see why. Though, not gonna lie, this one line nearly gave me a heart attack.
Uzi is! She's a kid, like us, V!
Also, the fact that I called her evil Jimmy Neutron only for this episode to reference the show, that's a good feeling.
Brain blast.
Also, of course, we gotta talk about Tessa. For someone that I kinda just placed as a villain, she was the unexpected MVP here. Honestly, I feel like this episode could easily have just had her be the main character instead of En. as out of the new info that we get, most of the stuff that we know for sure is about Tessa and her home situation, as we learn that she genuinely cares for her robots. They are not just a little pet project to her. She was willing to risk her life to go save N, and even if she hates her parents, she is also still willing to fight to save their lives. Which is kind of crazy when you start to realize just how terribly Tessa is raised. Because according to her, she hasn't met many humans before, but the robots are her only friends, and you can see why she relates to them so much. This girl is ecstatic at the idea of going to a ball, but then she winces when she clinks her glasses with Jay. At first, you don't really know what's going on here. You just think something's wrong with her wrist. But then you see her locked up in her room, physically chained to her bed, and you realize that the wrist that's manacled is the same one that was hurting earlier. So it's kind of a safe bet that her parents do this with an uncomfortable level of regularity, which goes a long way to explain why she's so much closer to her robots, but also open up the question of why would she send them away to wipe out the colony? There's a lot of unanswered questions here, but I'm becoming less and less sure if she's going to be the straight up villain of the season. She may still be an antagonist, and if the extremes V was willing to go through to get rid of Sin, I'd imagine Tessa would be willing to go even further. So she's never going to be completely on Uzi's side, and I do wonder if Doll's new eye patch is her trying to cover up her mark of the absolute so that she can still work with Tessa, but judging by the gunshot, I think she's onto her. Also, I love the touch of depicting all the humans as just shadows with glowing eyes. It's a cool way to avoid having to depict actual humans in the show, plus it allows them to have the same eyes as the robots, which is great for visual consistency. And there's probably some other metaphor here too.
I am a ghost witch.
And I'm tall.
Overall, I like this episode. It feels a little weird and it's kind of the weakest one for me, as it really does have the vibe of being a setup episode. The ending is funny. Don't know how Uzi caught up to them, so I just have to assume that she learned how to teleport. I'm a little bit worried that we're rushing to the finale, but even if this episode was a little bit weak, I'm confident that Murder Drones is gonna crush the finale. Though I am curious if we're gonna get a season 2.
Ew.
Don't date my robot, please.
He's his own person!
Not even gonna pretend that this wasn't the highlight of the episode for me. Though V nearly dying came close. Though not for the reasons you're thinking. Welcome folks to another wonderful edition of me discussing animated shows with overly aggressive shipping. Dead End was a banger. And yeah, I've been a little bit worried about this show after the last episode was kind of a premise without a plot. It gave us plenty of nightmare fuel while giving us nothing that we hadn't already guessed. But this latest episode was able to take the series in a direction that I loved, raise the stakes, and horrify me in all the right ways. Could we have used more J? Always. This episode though is way too solid for me to be mad. Unless you were shipping V and N. But at this point, y'all had to have known that the only letter she was catching was an L. I just didn't think it would happen so soon. This is just gonna be my thoughts on the episode, what I liked, what was kinda mid, and how V is about as dead as J is.
Real tired of killing this one.
So I'm just gonna piss off my entire audience by saying that I kinda don't care for V's sacrifice at the end. Yeah, the moment itself, on its own, is good. It's checking all the character arc boxes, with V going from trying to murder Uzi, never calling her by her name, to finally calling her Uzi while telling her that she trusts her before sacrificing herself. This works. On paper. In practice though, unless I see a body, I'm not buying it. The main reason for this is that this episode really doesn't do enough on its own to work as a proper send-off for V. Dead End is juggling a lot of stuff. Between the sole survivor who I just googled now is called Alice, Raptors, Tessa telling Anne about Earth, and worrying about what to do with Uzi, Sin hijacking Uzi, ships. V spends most of this episode kinda just chilling before biting the bullet at the end. This lack of prevalence makes it feel like there isn't enough build up for the show to actually follow through and kill her, as this scene does complete an arc. But it's one that we've never seen V really internalize or mull over. It's been background noise, which is kind of V's whole bag. As if I can fault this show for anything, is that it kind of struggles fitting V into the bigger story on a similar level as N and Uzi. She's there, she's fun. But it always feels like the things that make V relevant are the things that happened rather than the things that are happening. She knew about the solver before anyone else did, but it didn't say shit. We went into her mind and she barely talked. V isn't a bad character, but because of not wanting to spoil the mysteries, V ends up being the person who we never really get an in-depth look at. She's never really given the time to process what she feels for N, or really deal with her fear of Uzi becoming another sim, making her dying right here feel not as impactful as I think it could have been. But it also leads me to not really believe that she's dead here. We'll probably get more of her later, as even worst case scenario that she did in fact get turned into Raptor Chow. This episode establishes that Jay and the other Mergens are being cloned by the company, so even if we lose this one, another version could always pop up later down the road. Though the real nightmare scenario for me is that if V's a reassembler core fused with the other ones in the oven, as that would just be horrifying and a fitting final boss for the season. I do like the scene, I think all the moves are really dope, but overall, it's cool, but I'm not convinced whatsoever. Moving on, the rest of the episode slaps.
Shoot the baby immediately.
Like really, I don't have anything to complain about here. Like always, this show is really fucking good at directing horror. Even if it's not keeping you up at night scary, it nails tension and suspense. From the opening shot of a drone hiding from a Jurassic Park homage, the show is immediately able to suck you in. The dark confined spaces, the looming danger in the distance, but it also creates an active goal of the girl trying to save her friend, only for them both to meet the same fate. This show is really good at these horror moments, as it sets these micro goals so that even if we don't know who the person is, we're able to become immediately invested in their situation and want them to come out okay. AKA, we don't want them to just immediately die. This isn't something that the show always does, right? There are moments where the robots are just kind of crash test dummies for creative kills, but when this show wants to lean into horror and ambiance, it immediately is at the top of its game. With this episode probably being one of the show's strongest, striking the balance between funhouse horror, actual character moments, and plot progression. There's some stuff I feel like some fans will not care for, like how this episode immediately starts and diffuses the Mexican standoff. It's a bit anticlimactic, with Doll, who went from going to extreme lengths and risks to get her hands on the roach key, to start working with Tessa, only for her to immediately take it back and just make a beeline for the elevator by herself. It kind of calls into question why she went to all the effort in the first place. It also did explain how Uzi's team just immediately teleported to the new location. But for all that like minor nitpicks, the episode is more than able to make the best of the situation it creates, by using the narrative speed bump that is the Raptor Lady and the deceased to set new stakes and conflict for the characters, as Tessa reveals that Sin may have been stopped at the dinner party all those years ago, but the absolute solver has gone on to destroy Earth, converting it into a black hole, with the infographic implying that the solver has spread to other planets, presenting N, perfect golden retriever that he is, with a moral dilemma, as Tessa tells him that she needs his help to save the planet by potentially having to kill Uzi, something that eats them but also ends up bringing the two of them closer together, as his desire to save her is only increased by the arrival of this ticking clock. N is willing to go so far as to chop off her hand if it means keeping her safe from the solver's control, which, great, horrifying, terrible. It's also going to be immediately undone by the fact that these robots can regenerate limbs. So I'm not going to freak out too much about that, but there is just a new sense of desperation to N's actions that just goes so well with his perpetual optimism and kindness. Him giving his own mutilator a pep talk is so adorable, you kinda just forget how fucked up it is. Tessa is also proving to be an incredibly strong addition to the cast. She is aggressively Australian and is able to bounce between having everything and nothing under control, and it is a blast to watch. She is able to go from fun big sister to massive villain vibes at the drop of a hat, as she pushes N to help her stop Uzi. The choice to not show Tessa's face is leading to a lot of creepy and fun moments where we just see the reflection of her helmet, which adds all sorts of creep factor. Also, for those who don't know, this season of Murdrones is only about like 8 episodes. So while this isn't the penultimate episode, it does everything it needs to raise the stakes moving forward. I especially love how Uzi abusing her power is no longer the freebie it has previously been shown to be. Yeah, she was turning into a monster, but she seemed to immediately just have a handle on that. But now it's causing her to turn into Sin. The absolute solver is spreading, and suddenly nobody is okay, and everyone is scared, as if this keeps happening, N and Tessa are gonna have problems. The comedy of this episode is on point. We're getting closer and closer to the answers to the mysteries, though I would say personally, I'm still kind of apathetic to the whole Uzi's mom situation. situation. To me, it's kind of just the excuse the story needs for why Uzi's infected. The running mystery of what happened to her. Why was she making conspiracy boards? What is this sudden connection between her and Sin? It's all just kind of lackluster to me. It's like the one mystery in the show where every time it's brought up, I'm just like, okay. Like, the only real curious part to me right now is the timeline. As the butcher lady mentions that Uzi's mom, Nori, had yellow eyes when she abandoned the facility, but all the flashbacks we've seen of her have shown purple like Uzi, which means if she escaped the facility before she met her husband and had Uzi, then that would mean that at some point she was hijacked by Sin, but was able to fix or suppress it till whatever happened to her happened. Like, I feel like we just have all like the base facts of what we need to know, yet I just don't really feel the engagement or the pull like, oh, we need to find out what happened to Uzi's mom. It's just, we get the gist. And the ticking clock of stopping Sin and getting some answers about what the hell that thing is more than enough to drive the plot forward, so having this other mystery that's just gonna be like the same answers just feels superfluous. I understand why it's important to Uzi, but the mystery of the mom is wrapped up in so many more engaging mysteries that it just, no, unless there's some crazy reveal, I'm kinda of the opinion that we could have just cut this thing and lost very little that couldn't have been explained in other ways. But that's just my take. Also, we'll be giving them their own video, but En and Uzi continue to be adorable, and I am winning watching these adorable idiots blush and grow closer. En is the best. He is the highlight of this show, and Uzi, when she's allowed to be the anxiety-ridden teen that she is just peak comedy. This isn't the deepest relationship I've ever liked, but it is giving me all the serotonin, as Uzi is risking her sanity to save this man, and no matter what happens, En is always willing to give her a hand, which she definitely needs right now. Overall, I really like this episode. It's one of the better balanced ones of this season. It has scares, jokes, and uncut awesome. While I think there are some areas where it could have taken some steps to hit harder, I'm not gonna pretend that this episode didn't slap and I didn't enjoy myself from start to finish. Doll is still kinda just there, but that scene of her releasing the beast is awesome. We'll find out soon enough how the absolute solver will solve all these many competing plot threads, and I cannot wait for it to happen, as this show is just my brand of unhinged, and I love it for that. Oh, that's that good ship. Welcome, degenerates, to another wonderful edition of me discussing fictional relationships for fun and profit. Now, usually I make bank talking about problematic couples, as the algorithm is built around being a hater. But En and Uzi from Murder Drones is just one of those fictional couples that is just fun to watch. There's no massive, infuriating miscommunication drama. The girl's not a stalker. The boy isn't some grown man pretending to be 15. At least, I hope. Look, don't worry about it, we'll discuss it. But really, overall, this whole thing is just wholesome. As the timeline aside, En and Uzi are just pure serotonin, with some of the best use of angsty girl meets emotional support person that I've seen in a while. This show knows how to use angst without feeling cringe, and this love story is known to everyone who's ever felt like an outsider, and how the power of love will make us ignore just the dumbest things, like killing people. But nobody's perfect.
Oh, all right. Just don't do it again. Get in here, you goobs.
But En's close. So, the premise of Murder Drones is that capitalism sucks, and humanity speedran extinction on a new planet, leaving their worker robots gain sentience and start their own society, only for their parent company to be haters and send a bunch of Terminators to unalive their merchandise. The robots all realize that they're alive, only to start fearing death. Those that didn't die immediately end up locking themselves behind doors to hide from the murder drones, and once there, everyone will just kind of hang out waiting to die, with one of the biggest holdouts being Uzi. Now, Uzi is a lot.
It doesn't work yet. Who said it doesn't work? Maybe it does.
She rides that fine line between acting like an angsty teen, acknowledging it, and then being a menace to everyone in sight. This girl has gotten mommy issues, daddy issues, friend issues, hell, even her teacher is taking shots.
Repressed emotional baggage was only worth 2 points on the rubric.
Uzi is just the kind of girl that you would be scared of if you met in real life, and probably mock if you were a safe distance away. Part of the fact is that her whole vibe has this element of trying just way too hard. Like, Hot Topic on Hot Topic hard. But in spite of all that, Uzi is actually a very endearing character, being the only person to recognize just how absolutely screwed everyone is. She may not be dealing with it in a healthy way, but she is trying. The constant self-referencing to being an angsty teen allows this whole thing to come off as more of a persona than it being her actual character. She is angsty. Oh god, is she. But the fact that that she is intentionally leaning into these edgy teen tropes, with this just fitting the show's comedy and style just to a T. It lets what otherwise could have been a very grating character to come off as very natural, rather than her just being an edgy collage of I'm not like the other girls itis. I can see people not liking Uzi as, again, she is a lot. But the show's able to thread that needle and keep her likable, mainly by making everyone else around her just as petty.
You have to partner up.
Several people wanted to, for the record.
No, he didn't. You freak us out.
This is the kind of tried and true method of keeping flawed characters in a positive light, making them the underdog. As yes, you probably should be empathetic to people even when you don't know their tragic backstory. But you can't argue that having one and being the odd one out isn't effective, as it just taps into that core memory where we just all felt like that as a kid at some point. This creates immediate sympathy. Uzi may be aggro, but everyone around her has it coming just a little bit, and the fact that no one really takes death or violence that seriously allows this show to get away with way more than you would expect. But this antagonism towards her peers informs us just how she acts and sees the world. Thankfully, this isn't the focus of the story, like some other shows. Murder Drones is able to lean into Uzi's angst, but it balances out by the fact that it shows us just how scared and insecure she can be at times, allowing the character to revel in the whiplash between extreme confidence and insecurity, and all of it just feels perfectly on point. As you get it. She's spent most of her life thinking that she's just gonna die one day. Her dad sucks, straight up leaves her to die in the first episode. Uzi has nothing really going for her but extreme confidence that she's mostly faking and high intelligence. She doesn't have any friends, none of her peers like her. It's why you understand why she starts crushing on the first boy to not be hostile. Though that really is just all she feels for Thad. He doesn't suck, so he must be an option. He's basically every harem protagonist. When really though, the boy she's really fated for is the one she least expected, as I don't think she'd ever expect falling in love with the guy who probably killed her mother.
Did you just slap me with that arm?
Holy crap, it talks.
So, the Murder Drones. These things are the scourge of robot kind, killing robots en masse, drinking their oil like it's juice, and using their bodies to decorate their house. Everyone who lives behind those walls either lost family or know people who did. They are the monsters of this world, which is what makes N's demeanor so jarring when he first pops up, as N is just a sweetheart.
I guess I just want to be useful. I was given a job, and I always want to try my best.
Surrounded by his victims, and he is the king of wholesome. N is the best of the best boys. This is, again, despite the fact that he helped commit an actual genocide. But rather than this being a contradiction for the sake of feels and like, oh, he has a dark past, N's goodness is actually tied to his horrific actions. He was just following orders. And yeah, that is a Nazi uniform. Don't worry about it. At his core, though, N's situation and his ability to go along with mass murder of other robots is tied to his inability to not give everyone the benefit of the doubt. His boss hates him, his crush ignores him, but he acts like everything is fine and they're chill, and you get the vibe that he mostly believes that. This isn't just some massive coping mechanism like with some characters. N is just genuinely the most positive person imaginable, and it just works. As in a show filled with so much darkness, having this one beacon, this one person to fight back against the nightmare fuel, is just a breath of fresh air. When he got sent to this planet, he killed a lot of people, but he mostly assumed that there had to be a good reason for this. Plus the fact that he was also programmed to view them as targets instead of people. N wants to be helpful. He wants to be helpful so badly that he will just go along with this insane plan. Not to mention he's a robot, so the question of how much autonomy does he have is kind of up in the air. But also, yeah, out of all the three murder drones, he's probably the one that's going to be revealed who killed Uzi's mother because drama. But what really connects Uzi and N though is the fact that they are both outsiders. Uzi is shunned by everyone that she knows, just like how N's partners always give him the short end of the stick when they're not beating him with it. Uzi took this experience and told her haters to go to hell, and embrace optimism and just went along with it. But deep down, neither of them are really happy with where they are in their lives. So when they finally meet and Uzi blows his mind, figuratively and very literally, N glitches out and assumes Uzi is another murder drone, allowing his friendlier side to pop up as he isn't trying to kill her for 5 seconds. Uzi, meanwhile, realizes just for how much evil the drones have done, they are all still tools of humanity. They got sent here with no way to get back, meaning that they're most likely just being left for dead, or they would be disposed of once they finish their mission. Uzi's mind switches from this us versus them mentality to robots versus humanity. In this interaction and befriending Uzi, it leaves him to start having doubts about just maybe they shouldn't be killing the workers. And maybe, just maybe, they shouldn't trust a mega corporation. Yeah, they just tried to kill him for it, giving N the easiest excuse in the world to switch sides, with Uzi's influence rubbing off on him immediately, as he's already talking about repressed memories and using his mouth to get out of trouble. The two of them save the day. They stop the other murder drones, and then get a nice little cherry on top when Uzi tells her dad to fuck off, moving in with her new bestie and the other one, as the boss is... well, she's dead, till she isn't, then when she isn't again. This first episode, though, establishes the foundation for Uzi and N's relationship. They are complete opposites. But unlike so many other uses of this trope where it just makes such a big deal about the odd couple fighting, as people constantly bickering has this connotation of, oh look, they just really care about each other so much, but really it's also just very cliche how it always plays out. Here though, they skip that phase entirely. Instead, they just slot into being these supportive goofs who really just want the best for each other, as they're kind of all they got. Uzi still has her dad who's alive and getting screen time for some reason. She does move back in with him after the plot kinda demands it, but she barely tolerates him. N has V, but that is a can of worms we'll be getting into later. This all leaves Uzi and N to recognize that the only person who they can fully trust and understand is one another. They just immediately become best friends, and I think the show is just all the better for it, as we skip over any awkward phase where we have N just repenting for all the people he killed. Better off to skip that, as that basically would be its own show. We do not have time for that shit. But the secret sauce of this whole relationship is N's ability to just roll with anything. Uzi may be freaking out and losing her mind over mysteries, but he is always there to help her chill out. And he is always adorable when he's doing it. N provides levity to a girl who's built her identity around being angsty and not fitting in. And that is just kind of perfect. As yeah, Uzi's response to pretty much every problem is to yell at it or use science to better choose violence. Uzi has got issues, but having this bottomless bastion of positivity and whimsy softens Uzi's hard edges. As while she's still rude and sarcastic, being mean to N is like kicking a puppy. Even thinking about it feels wrong, so Uzi treats N differently than how she would treat anybody else. She is literally leaning on him in episode 2, which just goes to show just how safe this powder keg feels around him. These two naturally complement each other, and I feel like that is just where all the feels come from. And both their character arcs just keep feeding into that. They both have mysterious paths that are tied to one another. Uzi is slowly developing new powers and losing control of her body, and lost his memories, and his entire origin story is just nightmare fuel. But together, they are improving themselves. Uzi's learning to be more open and talking about her problems, and is learning to stand up for himself and to put his foot down when he sees others acting out of line. He went from being a doormat who would thank people for walking over him to standing up to V when she thinks Uzi might be a threat. There's a nice sense that the two of them are not just growing closer, but their arcs are heading them towards a similar place emotionally, especially since the two of them are in a race to find out who has the more fucked up past. We watch Uzi and N uncover the mystery of the absolute solver, with horrifying implications about the true nature of the murder drones, with this briefly, well, not fracturing N and Uzi's relationship, it's more like she got traumatized for funsies when the centipede monster faked her out, making her think that her dad got murdered in front of her, and then proceeded to show pics of her mom just to rub salt in that wound. It was a lot. Nobody was okay after this, and Uzi just couldn't keep pretending that she was fine after all that's happened. Uzi and N didn't have some huge fight or anything, they just kind of went through a horrific experience, with them just needing time to process what happened, but their relationship wasn't really damaged. The problem is the fact that they don't have texting, so these idiots just don't really know how to check in on the other. They assume that things must be bad when they're actually just fine, which is a great way to just breeze past any issues that they might have had here, as we don't need any more miscommunication bullshit. They literally show up and meet, and everything is okay again. Also, they meet up under duress, so that kind of helps, as N is forced to face Uzi as he thinks V is just gonna kill her entire class, while Uzi was miserable back at home and needed her goof back.
With me? Dapper buddies.
Also, she found out a different student was gonna kill everybody. Even if N is made out of nightmare fuel, you really just can't stay mad at the guy. Working together, they are able to stop both of the psychos. We also get the reveal that Uzi doesn't just have teen angst and daddy issues, but she's also going through evil puberty, being corrupted by the same entity that caused the robot centipede, which of course has something to do with her mother, because Uzi just cannot catch a break. Like, for real, fuck this guy. Even if you can excuse the part where he left her to die rather than try and fight back. Like, Khan is just that delusional dad who is both overly and non-invested in his daughter. Like, it takes actual effort to live with your daughter yet still not be in her life. All this man wanted was to obsess over this one decent achievement of building a door, and he just refused to move on, leaving Uzi to develop an inferiority complex a mile wide, where she just wants to prove herself, resenting the doors so she tried to make them irrelevant by killing the thing that they were keeping out, only for none of it to really matter in the end, except the part where Uzi is still traumatized and is still overcompensating. But now, after all that, she has N, and things can only get worse. Yeah, Uzi is losing control of her body and killing her classmates. Average teen things. Also, yeah, people die in this show constantly. It's kind of an investment issue, but it's also very funny.
1, 2.
Now the thing is, Uzi just got N back in her life, and is learning to barely tolerate V. Uzi has friends for the first time in her life, but then the drones start to become popular with the other students, leading her to become insecure, as she gets scared of losing the only friend that she really has. As after a lifetime of being treated like an outcast, she really would fear that other people would leave her to be with the more so-called normals. She has internalized that feeling of being the outsider, even as she rightly talks shit about everyone else in her life. While Uzi has always been loud and angsty, when she has real problems, she gets quiet and small. It's kind of like seeing your dad cry. Her fears of losing N, combined with not knowing what's happening to her body, leads her to try and handle things on her own. She is desperate. She is desperate to not be treated any more as a freak than she already is. She's desperate to keep N. She's desperate to not feel scared, and that just leads her to getting boxed in and everything to get worse.
Does it at least have pictures?
It doesn't. I checked.
Yeah, she's eating people now, with N's Mr. Good Boy and optimism persona finally cracking as he gets nervous, as he doesn't know what's going on, and V won't tell him. This is where we see him finally start putting his foot down and de-escalating the situation. Also, must be noted, Uzi was going crazy this entire time till the second she heard N. Just needed to be pointed out. N does what he does best, comfort everyone around him, relating to Uzi and telling her how he felt scared when she wasn't around. Being terrified is kind of their normal, but when they're together, it doesn't feel like actually serious. And N confirms that he would never abandon her. He'd always make sure that things are gonna be okay and that they should always stick together. And yes, she totally killed those people, but they just have to deal with things one step at a time, as their alternative would just be to freeze and panic at just how big the pile of problems is getting. This moment solidified what I love about them. Uzi is a angsty mess who desperately needs connections, to be supported, to not be treated like a freak. And meanwhile, is emotional support personified, so it just feels like a natural fit for the two of them to be in each other's lives. But the real fun begins when you see that Uzi starts to recognize that these aren't friend feelings. That the lengths N will go to help others, being this bastion of positivity in her life, has slowly made her realize just how embarrassingly in love she is. Plus, being irony and sarcasm poisoned, any love is too embarrassing. But N being so constantly positive complicates things, as it's hard for Uzi to really gauge just if N feels the same way. This isn't drawn out, it's not extended to hell and back, thank God. But Uzi recognizing her feelings, rather than being a relief, actually stresses her out, as she now has to watch how she interacts with him, where in the past, she just didn't have to sweat anything. Which is why it's only when she's asleep does she start holding N's hand. Or in the latest episode, where it just happens, because this show can actually progress. Not to mention that this girl is terrified and needs him for support, and is okay admitting that now. She's also able to recognize that N is going through something. It's very cute. And yes, N doesn't have the same volume of content going on. He's still perfect just the way that he is. Though we might as well now talk about one of the reasons people may not immediately jump for this ship. As yes, they did have big sibling vibes at the start. Now, full disclosure, they do have a little bit of a little sister, older brother vibe going on, at least in the first 2 episodes. This is not helped by Uzi having a crush on the other guy, who then proceeds to drop off the face of the earth. If you like these two better when they were like that, valid. Though the second that the knife dance happened, I was done.
Seriously, don't do that again.
Uzi.
Love it. But if you wanted them to stay friends, fair enough. But for me though, this is just way too cute not to like. And one thing that I find really interesting that I wonder if the show is going to dig more into is just how much N's relationship with Uzi mirrors what he used to have with Sin. N has always been this big brother, protective figure to little outcasts. This has been a role he has always put on himself, always trying to make sure that they felt loved and supported even when they were surrounded by haters. Sin was a defective robot that Tessa, N's creator, saved alongside the other future robot drones. But while the others were all mostly fine, Sin had some serious deficiencies. She had limited motion control and had a way more robotic speech pattern that made her come off as extremely creepy, which she was.
Perhaps you'd like to attend the gala with me.
But this set her apart from the rest, with not even Tessa, who is supposed to be like the kindish-ish person in the room, not really being ecstatic to see her. But for all the stuff Sin has to deal with, N always did his best to make up for the things she wasn't invited for, always hanging out with her, trying to have them go and make up their own activities. In spite of all his best efforts though, Sin was still being mistreated by the others, with it being revealed that they would just lock Sin in the basement and leave her there for long periods of time. Sin probably already had abandonment issues and was corrupted by the absolute solver. So when she finally started killing people and most likely experimenting on the others, I don't think N would have taken it well. He doesn't remember because convenient amnesia, but I wonder if there's something about how he may unconsciously assume a similar role with Uzi, that saving her has become this unknowing quest for redemption to stop what happened to Sin from happening to Uzi. In a way, you could say that he did fail Sin. He probably couldn't have stopped it even if he tried, but I don't think he'd ever let himself off that easy. So the fact that Uzi is being corrupted and possessed by Sin sets up N having to make a difficult choice between stopping history from repeating itself or stopping it in a more lethal way. This is what kills his mood in the latest episode, as he now has to grapple with the fact that Tessa is asking him to put down Uzi to stop the spread of the solver, who if left unchecked, could destroy planets. Mr. Pure has to grapple with his first actual moral dilemma, and while we know he's gonna make the right choice, he's not being left with many good options here. Speaking of options that aren't really on the table, V.
Origin story.
N and V are a topic that kind of deserves its own video, but here's the basics of why I think it's kind of weird, at least canonically. Now to start, the first episode establishes that N has a massive crush on V, only for it to never come up again. In fact, it seems to have switched to V, secretly being infatuated with N. It's implied that the two of them had something going on in the past when they were at the mansion, but that thing kind of just slips through the cracks whenever we go back to get more info about that whole time period. So instead, what we're left with is just this interesting but weird scenario. V knows way more about the past than N does. It's implied that she has never lost her memories and knows everything that happened. She remembers Sin and the absolute solver, yet also refuses to tell N about what happened while also working to protect him. V thinks that she has to be the person who does the bad things to keep everyone safe, from gutting civilians so that they can live by eating their innards, or killing Uzi to stop her from becoming another Sin. V is always putting N's safety first, even if she doesn't have the best way of showing it. She hides information from him, thinking that he's better off not knowing about any of this, instead putting up a front about being a bad person to psych herself up for what she's about to do. V is a very interesting character, but romantically, I wouldn't really call this a love triangle. I think she's still in love with N, but we never really see her pursue that. Instead, it's mostly always a thing about survival. She gets some petty shots in at Uzi, telling her how N has befriended Rox before, so he'll move on once she's gone and V has killed her. But this isn't just a jealousy thing. The truth that V knows Uzi is corrupted and is just waiting for it to happen so that she'll be forced to kill her. Something that she doesn't really want to do, but she also needs to, but also can't do it right now because they're trying to solve a mystery that they need Uzi for, leads to this complex situation where V is coming off as a very jealous ex. But V is also not making any moves to make this an actual competition, a holdover from whatever they were before N lost his memories. But whatever happened has left V so scarred that she prioritizes keeping them alive over anything else. Maybe that's why she was just going headfirst into war crimes when they were killing robots. Maybe her personality was just slightly rewritten. Either way, over the course of the season, we watch her chill out and become become a somewhat maladjusted but better adjusted person. So while I absolutely can see why people would ship her with N, the actual show is very much giving V her own things to do, with that arc culminating in her sacrificing herself to save Uzi and N. I doubt she's dead, but this ship definitely is.
I am! Uzi is! She's a kid! Like us, V!
Oh, thank God. Okay, let's talk about that minor problem I used to justify that clickbait of the thumbnail that I might change. I did say it's a minor problem, but it really isn't since this bitch is actually 20. Or 19. Yeah, bet you didn't know that one, did you? So to breeze through this issue, as it kinda deserves to be, some small sections of fans have been in a tizzy over the ages of these two robots. Now on one hand, yeah, the timeline for this show is very, very, very unclear. Totally possible that N is closer to Uzi's dad's age than her, as Uzi has spent her whole life hiding from the murder drones. Like, we don't know that for sure, but it is heavily implied. And we know from the latest episode that Uzi's mom was experimented on by the humans after the mansion massacre, after which point N was reconstituted as a murder drone and sent in after the humans wiped out the planet. There's a lot of fuzzy timeline going here where we don't know how long certain events happened after which, but it's kind of likely it would make sense that N is actually like older than most of the other robots here. Like, we know he was a salvage, so odds are he's been around for a while, but his personality got rewritten, he's had memory loss. It's a whole lot of maybes, ums, and buts, so I kind of don't really factor it into anything. Like, you'd assume these kids are in fucking high school or middle school, but they're all 19 and 20, which we know because Uzi's classmates went missing and 19 to 20 was the age range. There's no indicator for time. Tessa is like our best bet went from teen to young adult, but we don't really know shit. So at the end of the day, people's like, oh no, this can't happen. Uzi's a minor when she's not. We don't know how old N is, and this whole thing is robots. I don't feel like we should waste any brain cells over it. Like, this isn't a Ferb and Vanessa situation where the questions over when the fuck did this start has some risky implications, or Nanatsu no Taizai, which has more red flags than a Soviet parade. We could argue about age and mental age, but all of it's not gonna give anyone any answers that they'll be satisfied with. People just argue in circles about this shit, but it's never gonna be the gotcha or purity test that people want it to be. Best to just let this ship happen and enjoy the chemistry, as getting hung up about the hypothetical age gap between two fictional robots where there is no power imbalance probably isn't worth the time. We should probably save that energy for real life and Lore Olympus. Overall, I think this ship is adorable. This ship plays the show's strengths. The angst, the comedy, giving us the most wholesome couple you can ask for. It's just a fun couple to watch. It's not complicated, it's not the deepest thing in the world, even though you can really dig into some of the individual characters. But these two are here for the warm and fuzzies, and so am I. Can't wait to see how this will wrap up. As if this really is getting a second season, I'm betting that the finale is gonna leave us real happy or real devastated. And I don't know which one I'm more excited for. Uzi is dating her mother's murderer, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Dorman, those things killed your frickin' mother!
Like, I would be shocked by this if I didn't already know about it. And if you didn't, congrats on not paying attention. We've known this little tidbit since episode 1, that the motherboard, she got smashed, and we know the culprits. But it's fun to see the show finally say it, for us to realize this is the actual situation. And it's even better that N can't say what Uzi and him actually have going on, so he just writes it in his own blood. If these were different circumstances, Uzi's heart might have actually skipped a beat before she ripped it out of sheer embarrassment. For all people who doubted, all the people who said, no, they're siblings, no, they're friends, rip, sorry, suck it. Uzi is canon, but if it's any consolation, Uzi is turning into N's sister, so y'all were kinda right. Till you weren't. But this episode's full of more than just shipping reveals. We got twists, we got exposition, we're getting the answers to the mysteries and the surprise return of Uzi's sole parent, or at least the sole parent worth respecting. Not to mention the implication that this mess, for the first time in literary history, isn't all humanity's fault. Mostly because, well, they're all dead, and Sin has been behind all of this. This episode was crazy. Uzi is setting sail, so let's break down the ship and the other stuff, as I have to at least pretend to care about the rest of the show besides, you know. Thankfully though, it's not that hard, because this was really good. Now just gonna run through the events of the episode and give my thoughts as they become relevant. Tangents, rants, and shenanigans might ensue, which is a lie, as you know they will. So to kick things off in style, let's talk about that flashback. So you know shit's bad when the men of science have started to pray. And you kinda get it, as these guys, even if God isn't real in this universe, the devil definitely is. I feel like this episode is probably the definition of saying the quiet part out loud. Most reveals that happen have already been heavily hinted at, like how Uzi and Doll's moms, Nori and Yeva, were experimented on by the humans infected with the Absolute Solver. But even while that piece of info was obvious, I think what this episode does really well is that it takes that info, then adds more context that makes the situation more interesting and providing answers to the oh so desperately needed why factor. As yeah, we knew humanity was doing the things, but we didn't fully know why they were doing it. As humanity really saw a single robot get possessed and devour the earth, and then said take two, with us finally getting the reason for why they would tempt fate and sign their own death warrants, as it turns out they were trying to work on a cure. You know, besides death. They create a software patch / MacGuffin that would free any robot infected by the solver, which great, perfect, just what Uzi needs. One problem, it doesn't actually solve humanity's.
The way on this planet too. Let's eat.
See, the issue here is that this patch seems mainly designed around removing sin from the systems of those it's infected, which, oh my god, that's why they dressed up like priests. They're dealing with sin. No notes? That's perfect. But they are only dealing with sin inside each individual robot. We don't know how this patch really works or how it worked, so while it could have been a stepping stone, Sin, as we've seen, apparently is running on some kind of cloud hive mind, being conscious and perceiving the events of what happened in the temple via the possessed drones. Hence how she knew any of this existed. She referred to it as them cutting her feed. As she could see through these robots, these weren't just straight copies of her. Which does beg the question, if this patch was used on the original Sin, would that just fix everything? Or has Sin evolved to such a point that any of her possessed robots can serve as a backup? There is a chance that the original Sin is the central processing unit, the nexus that allows all of her alters to alter reality. Alright, oh my god, say that one 10 times fast. So lots of questions on just what the real end goal for humanity was, if they had any, as in typical Murder Drones fashion, these geniuses are still fucking morons.
Is this guy important?
So yeah, Nori had progressed too far, Sin was getting her Freddy Krueger on, so they sent a doctor who was actually an intern to go get Yeva, who as we would discover later is a first successful subject for the patch, having been freed from Sin but keeping the dope powers. But the intern is gonna intern and assumes that they're gonna just kill Yeva, only for all of this to turn out to be a fake out, which I somehow noticed and got lucky and saw the flickers. Shit keeps going wrong, and we end on what looks like the intern's death and the end of this recording. And then we pull back to reveal something that was not what I thought it was at first. So the first time I watched this scene, the idea of this being Nori had not even entered my head, as while robots don't have the genes, but Uzi and her mom are pretty much identical. So I was not prepared to see a little heart monster wearing a beanie, cat-eared headphones, listening to Nightcore. So yeah, I thought we went from a flashback to a flash forward where Uzi got her heart ripped out. Only no, this is Nori, who's alive. Kinda. Like, this is Uzi's mom, and she somehow survived and somehow even got here. I did not predict this. This was not even on my bingo card, but she is honestly so good in this episode. And we catch her at first trying to find a way out of this godforsaken maze, with Uzi, N, and Tessa crashing to the bottom of the floor to join her after V sacrificed herself for them, causing N to freak out, only for his panic for his old crush to be replaced by worry for his new one. Like always, as Uzi is dangerously close from going from his girl to his sister. Yeah, Uzi doesn't have a lot of time left. So Tessa, who dresses like she's from Among Us and is the most sus, talking about how they'll have to kill Uzi to protect humanity, has been trying to recruit N to this cause, tries to get that ball rolling by suggesting that they just box and stow away Uzi till after the adventure, where nothing else will happen and she will be completely safe, wink wink. Only for N to stand tall, puff up his chest, only to immediately buckle and backslide as he is a professional appeaser. He says they're not going to kill Uzi, but he also can't bring himself to disagree with Tessa. And also, he won't explain the situation to Uzi, hence why everything is going wrong, leading N's attempts to be subtle to backfire horrendously.
Everything yet, but we're not gonna hurt you, okay?
As yeah, of course Uzi's gonna catch on to what N is trying not to cook, with the solver kicking in at the best worst time, with Uzi redirecting a black hole to cause a cave-in. And after a whole season of Uzi learning to let people in, she steps back and walks away from N, which yeah, that fits. But if we're talking about characters backsliding, N's needs to be studied, so let's.
Hey, no, I'm going to murder everyone. Brain check.
Now N has always been the most golden of golden retrievers. He's a good boy. Some would say the best boy. In spite of him wanting the best for everybody, and in spite of the fact that he doesn't have a bad bone in his body, he also committed literal genocide. This is a product of him being so nice that him imagining other people having ill intentions is almost a foreign concept. He's ready to see the best in everyone even when it's clearly not there, so then he starts making excuses. Humanity and Jay told him to wipe out the drones, so he did. N is accepting, he is loving, and we all love that about him. But he's also way too willing to go along with other people's crazy. That's why his arc at the start of the series begins with him realizing drones shouldn't be killed en masse, and that maybe, just maybe, the company is wrong and his friends suck. And then from there, we see him actually grow a backbone, going from obeying his crush and bully to obeying Uzi, to finally figuring out just how to put his foot down and to stand up for what he thinks is right. It's a small but very important character change. But then Tessa shows up, and suddenly Mr. Best Boy has to start making tough moral decisions and seems to be slipping back into old habits. As N, just like with V and J, they all trust Tessa. She was their friend. And while they had a rocky reunion, Mr. Benefit of the Doubt was willing to go along with her and believe what she tells him to a certain extent, allowing quote-unquote Tessa to tell him how bad things are on Earth, not really questioning this information, and not really questioning the job that they need to do. And this puts him in a place very similar to where he started, obeying others even when he has some doubts about what's happening. The only real difference is that Tessa has to pretend to have a moral argument, with N not really having any way to like push back and say like, okay, this isn't kind of what they need to do. He wants what's best for everybody, but is also easily swayed to make compromises and to hide secrets he doesn't want to keep, as he thinks it's for the greater good, and he is very much delaying making a decision. And this is what allows Tessa to take advantage of him to get what she wants, like she always has. So while good intention, him allowing Tessa to control the situation, to not fully explain what's going on to Uzi, it all represents a backslide for him to some of his just earlier behavior. So Uzi, picking up on his uncertainty, was kind of smart to step away. And I do wonder if Tessa is the one that caused the malfunction in the black hole, as while it looks like it's interrupting them about to box Uzi, it also separates the two, giving Tessa time to work on the both of them individually. But N made a mistake, and he realized it immediately.
Chef, trauma goes from here, you find from there.
Oh yeah, he knows. And all this setup though of him backsliding is very important, as he is going to finally have to stand up to Tessa later, overcoming his own flaw and showing him prioritizing the people he chooses to care about over those he knew in the past and who are actually just using him now. Speaking of which, just to get a pet theory out of the way, V isn't dead.
Wandering around.
I'm a good friend, and secrets are blackmail.
I know, shocking. The other guy in V's +1 are out in the cold because someone is texting the girl and she is texting back. And since she doesn't know any other people, the only real viable answer here is V. Maybe this is an old message, but after every character of importance has come back from the dead, I think it's more likely than not that V survived in some capacity, even if it's just as one of those heart crab things. But yeah, these two are, hold on. Thad and Lizzie are here, but Jay just blew up the other spaceship, stranding everyone on the planet. They can't escape, and it's the end times. And you know it is, as Khan is actually being useful.
End times! If my wife's closet is right, the planet's gonna try to eat us soon.
This dude is building his daughter's railgun, and I feel like that's the least he can do after, well, leaving her to die. Shit is getting real, gravity is getting finicky, and the whole planet is on a one-way trip to Sin's stomach. But it is good to see these three characters I only semi-remember pop up again. They kinda fell off in relevance very quickly, but none of them are terrible, so, well, one of them is. But I'm glad that they're being included. They're being set up to fight Jay, who actually confirms that all merge drones share the same bank of memories. They're not individual units, as her systems register the railguns as prior threats. So it has to know what happened with Uzi. Back to our regularly scheduled nightmare fuel, N is having a rough one. Now, fresh off of picking scaring away Uzi, his first thought when he wakes up is her, crying into the darkness to see if she's okay, because of course he would. He then decides to cut off his own arm to escape, with a saw, despite having a blade that cuts through robots like butter and a laser that turns everything into mush. But hey, any excuse we need to have him be terrified by his past sin.
You're one of the main reasons I wanted your team to retain your personalities.
Now my first assumption here when I saw this thing that it was a new Sin. But since we later see Nori's hand possessed by Sin going into the abyss, the idea that this was just a copy that has managed to rebuild itself in the intervening years, it made semi-sense to me, especially with how the planet kept having its gravity turned on and off when we haven't seen anyone become like the primary host of the Solver, but since we got that reveal later, this was probably just one Sin fucking with N's head and trying to control it, with us getting a huge reveal that low-key the story just kind of breezes past. Now, the running assumption that we are all led to believe is that humanity sent the murder drones to kill all the workers. That yes, while we were getting evidence that the drones were products of Sin's experiments, we never got any evidence to disprove the idea that humanity sent the drones. It always seemed like in the aftermath of Sin's destruction of Earth, the company managed to retrofit or re-engineer the murder drones to serve them. That maybe they just couldn't remove all of Sin's programming, hence the Solver popping up after Jay died. However, now we know the truth. As we see, there's an army of murder drones attacking the humans, eating them, and we also got the confirmation that Tessa is actually Sin, who has been using Tessa's skin to masquerade as a human to get past all the biometric locks to mixed results. But we'll break down the foreshadowing for that later. Here, the reveal is that Sin has created them, mass-produced them, then the confirmation via a note that she didn't send the exterminators to wipe out all the drones. No, they were really just sent here to wipe out all the hosts of the Solver, the ones that managed to escape her control and pose a potential threat to Sin later. So humanity, after all the hype, all of Uzi's rage is just gone at this point. We have not seen a single example of humanity doing anything post the explosion. It's been her this whole time, recontextualizing everything that's been happening in the story to this point. And this has the bonus effect of making everything in the story feel like it's truly been building to here. As yeah, this patch, this cabin, this lab, this is what Sin has been after this entire time, and this place might be the only one where they can find something to stop her. We also need to point out just how Sin's hug here is her attempted control N, only for the power of love and hacking to reject her, as Uzi's username flashes as the admin rejecting Sin's attempts to take him over. Because yeah, N is Uzi's property now.
He's his own person!
Like, I do find it cool that we see that there is some leftover hell from when they dove into N's mind, that facing his past with Uzi gave him some protection from Sin's influence. But really, this is just telling me that, yeah, even when they're not together, Uzi is still keeping him safe and showing how in spite of her being herself, N is still way better off thanks to knowing Uzi, and now this is his chance to choose for himself what he wants to do next. After he gets saved by Nori, of course. All of his interactions with her, though, perfect.
I promise to wait until you're ready to tell her yourself.
God, he's adorable. I don't know how Nori got down here without knowing how to get back up. Like, she had to crawl here after getting killed or just woke up here because reasons. What's really important is that we get more context on just what happened that day. That she was cured by Yeva, only for Sin to nuke the planet, killing all the humans. And after which she sent all the drones to kill the robots, and now everyone is doing their best to prevent the apocalypse. Nori, like, yeah, she is really just Uzi, plus a couple of years. So seeing her interact with N is great, as he really brings home the I messed up 20 seconds ago energy, having already taken an oath not to lie to Uzi anymore and pushing her mom to just tell her she exists, which she doesn't want to do, as like her daughter, Nori is a pessimist who can't imagine revealing the shit show that was her past to go over well with anyone, minus Khan, but they all have their flaws. Though her perception of Uzi freaking out, that's kind of has some basis in reality, as after Uzi sees the footage of what happened to her mom, she rips off her mother's necklace, as having only seen the worst day of Nori's life, the formerly intimate connection she felt through it, yeah, those feels have been kind of been poisoned as she found out what it really meant and what it was associated with. As when she saw her mom wearing it, it was when something else was wearing her. That said, and we do have to double back to the red flag party, Uzi is dating her mother's murderer, who attempted to kill her, her father, got most of her community. But after all that, I'm pretty sure she can spare a pass for her mom, as she already gave one to her dad for leaving her to die. Which I can't wait for Nori to find out about that.
Bite me.
Though while I adore this interaction, I will take this moment of cuteness to ruin it by talking about one of my few gripes with this episode, which is Doll's death. Now, I've said this before in a separate video, I have scruples with how the show handles death in it. As well, I fully embrace them using kills for spectacle a la fatalities or slasher films. These are robots, so you can do way crazier, gorier stuff to them than if they were organics. But after a while, the series hits a point where unless you're a main character, I don't really care when you die, as there's just so many of them. It ends up giving the show a haunted house horror type vibe. This isn't something that like it's truly scary. At best, it's mostly just really exciting, which I am fine with. However, when you combine that with the fact that people are starting to come back from the dead, I've now hit a point where I'm not even sure I can trust the fact that Doll is actually gone, or she'll just come back later somehow. And even if she's gone, I'm not in love with it, as to me this is a very anticlimactic death. But for a character that has been so integral to the story, her getting got off screen feels underwhelming. It feels like we're throwing away a lot of potential just to raise the stakes a little bit. So I end up not really caring for it. Doll, after all the buildup, all of her parallels with Uzi, her being just a massive shit starter, she just dies, and right now I can't fully believe she's dead. So Doll's death is like the one moment here where I'm just like,
that can't be it. Where's the rest of it?
I feel like there should be more here, there might be, but either way you cut, I feel disconnected from a moment that should be raising the tension of the episode. Instead, all I got is,
okay.
But yeah, Doll is gone. She got murdered by Tessa, who is now trying to kill Uzi, only for N to step in and in his coldest moment, kills Tessa when she starts trying to monologue at him.
You knew about the patch, yes or no? One chance.
You know why I keep you around here?
And I love this, as N put the pieces together to realize Tessa has been lying to him at best, and he gives her a choice to be honest, and when she ignores him, he just offs her, fully breaking free of his old friend group and choosing for himself, not just for Uzi. Though, just to point this out, Tessa started quoting Sin's speech about him earlier about why she keeps him around, so that might have been the other hint to why, okay, I need to ice her immediately, and either way, this was very cathartic. And then after that, we got nice sweet newsy oh shit.
Really sweet, big brother.
Never mind. So yeah, this is the best action scene in the entire series. There might be moments like the dance I like just a little bit more, they are iconic, but Sin busting out all the stops with N and Nori just doing their best to stay alive. I love all of it. It is so hype, it is so action-packed, it moves so fast, and it is just kicking all the ass. And I like how when you look at it, you actually see that they are kind of a match for Sin here. But N's reluctance to hurt Uzi means that you can't ever go for the kill. Sin leans into this and starts messing with him, like forcing his blade to dig into Uzi's neck. This is torture and probably her being petty for the decapitation that just happened. Though the creme de la creme of all this when they start busting out the black holes and like, what do you want me to say? This shit is just so cool. I feel like the first time I watched this, I was a little bit lost, but the more I go back to it, the more I like it. This is a true showstopper. It's all of Glitch's technical prowess on full display, and yeah, it's hype. And now it's over, so let's talk about those feels. Now, I've already done a video about these two, maybe you've seen it. It just hit 1 million views, yes. I'm shocked too, but I adore Uzi and N together. They are just the right combo of cynical but immature with a golden retriever who cares way too much. Uzi is just always fun as we get to see Uzi opening up while N finally starts growing a backbone with all his warmth going to someone who clearly needs it. They just started holding hands last step, but have a brief moment of panic where they backslide into their worst tendencies. We see N come back swinging, committing to being his own person and making his own decisions, while Uzi, once she regains control after screaming about N putting the world's most vague label on their status, hugs him after all the crazy they just went through. Like how she just yeeted her mother and she didn't know it till she did. But she likes N's hugs, so yeah, this is cute. I love it. And while this is a massive step forward for their relationship, it is a great episode to solidify their individual arcs and what they mean to one another. It solidifies the idea of them as a couple, even if it's not really progressing it.
Uzi Dorman. Those things killed your frickin' mother!
And outing their thing to their mom was honestly just so funny. Nori slaps some sense back into her daughter. Sin has eaten plants, but even she has never seen such nonsense. And wrote his confession in his own blood, because even when he needs to distract Sin, he can't actually say the thing. But you know how he feels, so this is just comedy gold. Especially when it's just the mom pointing out how Uzi is infatuated with the thing that either killed her or helped make it happen. Like any other story, this would be such a massive big deal. This would be be what the whole relationship would be about, but here, in Murder Drones, the tone, Uzi understanding N's situation about how, well, he really didn't have that much choice in his actions. All this makes it so this isn't really an issue, that they really need to focus on the real issue of the humans, aka Sin. So truly, while the on-paper pitch for these two hooking up is questionable, when you see the final product, it's just endearing. All N did to protect her even when he was fighting her, Uzi's angsty teen popping through, the fact that she's the reason that Sin can't control N anymore, makes so when it's all said and done, Uzi choosing to save N and her last words being "die mad," I cackled. It's so perfect for these two. Uzi thinks she's about to die and she still won't allow herself to be sappy and say, "I love you," "goodbye," or anything like that. She pulls her version of a pro gamer move, helping the guy she has been hanging out with, then going out on her own terms. It's just so Uzi, and I love it, even though I don't think she's gonna die. And honestly, if she did, this would be a solid ending for her. Of course, we do have to talk about the other elephant in the room.
Get snuck upon.
Yeah, Tessa is just Sin wearing her skin, which really makes sense when you look back on just everything that's happened up until this point. How the human-only computers kept rejecting her, the Raptors being perplexed when they first saw her. They kept switching between friendly dingo and kill all AI. So when it was trying to scan her, we thought we were doing How to Train Your Dragons. But really, this thing was just legitimately confused on what it was seeing, so it defaulted to attacking. Not to mention that Tessa got bit in an environment that seems to require her to wear a spacesuit, only for her to never stress that it was broken, nor show any real pain after she was bitten, besides that a momentary, "oh no, it got me." Though that stuff is subtle, they start really leaning into the stuff heavily here. Like when Uzi tries to use her powers only for the solver to say, "no, this is a non-interactable object," as people who have been possessed by the solver can't use their powers on one another. And then just for the fact that Tessa isn't human, though she could have been a cyborg, she was also strong enough to lean on her blade and overpower a robot. All the hints were there for what Tessa actually was, but even if you know it's coming, the horror of seeing Sin wearing Tessa's skin is just enough to shock you on its own. This design, it's terrifying, and after all the shadows of us never seeing Tessa and what she looked like, the fact that this is how we see her, major creep vibes, and I cannot wait for the next episode.
Space. Yes, please, space. Go to space. Hey, space. I'm gonna go to space.
Uzi seems to be trapped in space, and I have no idea what exactly is going on here. I think my first idea was that, okay, they're creating a black hole to devour the planet like Sin did with Earth, but seeing as Uzi popped in what looks like space, I'm more willing to bet that all this effort has been just Sin trying to create a portal so that she can bring herself or her army through it, or maybe just drag the whole planet into her black hole via the portal. These things, though, apparently take a lot of effort, as Sin still needs a spaceship to get to this planet, and as having Jay prep their ship to take off. Whatever happens next is gonna be something, and I am just so fucking ready for it. Newsy not kissing here is gonna be my villain origin story. All is forgiven. Welcome y'all to another wonderful edition of me talking about a ship that happens to have a cartoon around it. Yes, this is a review. My general thoughts on Murder Drones as a series since, you know, it's over, and the finale slapped. So let's have a little fun talking about what made this show so great, and the answer, one of the main ones, is gonna be divisive, as this show isn't for everyone. No show is, else it can't be good, but the greatest strength and hurdle of Murder Drones is the fact that it is cringe.
You chose to leave me for dead instead of just frickin' believing in me. That's not even an edgy teen hyperbole like when I said it last week.
He's his own person!
Murder Drones is written like it's for terminally online middle schoolers, and I would have it no other way. Truly, from name-dropping tropes like they got a punch card, Uzi wailing about her teen angst and trying to be edgy, the horror, the anime references, the awkward interplay between the obvious teenagers, this show being released on the internet was a perfect fit, as it was clearly born and raised here.
Made the tag when I was 8. Shut up.
Now, depending on your taste, this is gonna turn off like a bad memory from 5 years ago. This thing ain't everyone's cup of tea, and I get it. This show is a lot. It's high-octane violence mixed with a twee love story nightmare fuel and a main character that called herself a damaged OC. Murder Drones is cringe, and I think that's what makes it good.
Are you, like, gonna leave me?
Uzi.
Never mind, stupid.
Personally, I vibe with this show's quirky self. Yeah, it's pointing at its own cliches with an FU-sized neon sign, but this is a show that thrives in excess. Everything is heightened for maximum impact, be it the action scenes with blades, guns, and lasers that should make every other weapon irrelevant, but screw you, it's cool, to the characters ranging from the Funko Pop mascot for Hot Topic to the goodest of boys. MD teeters between blood-spattered gore and utter sincerity. If you can say anything about this show, it's that it wears its heart and interest on its sleeve, which gives this show a unique and compelling voice that I truly appreciate.
I think dumb things are freaking cool, and
In an era where so many shows are made as bland as possible to appeal to as many people as possible, having a series with such a specific niche is always going to catch my attention. Murder Drones is a love letter / cry for help to the heightened feelings of being a teenager, to the experience of being an outcast with interests that no one else seems to understand. How even when you're not ashamed fully of what you like, not being understood will still wear on you till you start finding your people and suddenly life gets better. This story is cringe AF. Because his main character is. Uzi is a teenage girl going through evil puberty caused by an STD she got from her mom. Murder Drones went for a very specific vibe, and it succeeded. If you ever want to check out a show that your AMV watching self invented in your head as a kid, then Murder Drones is as close as you'll get without picking up a pencil. You can either be ashamed of it or embrace it. And after seeing the results,
Wrong team.
No more tricks.
I know which one I'm choosing. Now to move on to a quick summary of my thoughts on the overall series. It's good.
Everyone, -1.
Now, I've done videos on all the episodes before. Wanna watch all of them in one convenient place? Check out my new compilation channel, Sarcastic Vibes. Yeah, I'm hopping on this money train too. But with the context of the series being done, I can now safely say that I fuck with this show. Mostly. So to get my minor scruples out of the way, and mind you, I said scruples, not actual problems that take away from the overall experience. And for this first one, we have to go way back to the pilot. It is a solid pitch for the series, but the first episode of Murder Drones is a minor case of a show pitching an idea, then kind of doing something else when it got a full series. Initially, it looked like we were getting Uzi,
Kill all humans,
had multiple incoming enemies, ditch her community, only for episode 2 to walk up and say, nah, let's actually go back to the shitty dad in school life, focus on some eldritch horror mystery instead, and I don't mind this. But given online shows historically being wishy-washy on how much a first episode is a first episode or just the pitch for a series, they'll get refined later for the writer to do what they actually want. And if you think I'm making that last part up, they joke about it in this finale. Overall, I think the pilot is solid, but it's certainly the roughest of the episodes. It has a lot of jokes that don't fully land. You can tell they're still figuring out the timing. The animation isn't as polished as we would come to expect from it later, but it gave us Uzi, so I can't really complain.
Uzi, please sit normal.
Bite me.
Uzi is a great lead. She's a parody of an angsty teen who would probably complain about not having a tragic enough backstory if she did actually have one. I think Uzi is the epitome of the embrace cringe mentality of this show. She's going at a 10 at all times, being brash, moody, and nursing some major insecurities. She is a pretty stereotypical tsundere, only her love interest really is vulnerability. Girl starts a series as a menace, and you understand why people avoid her. They're bitches, but you get it. But over the course of the series, we see that she can be soft, that she does have things that she truly needs to work on and secretly craves to be just understood. And eventually she finds her people and they help her commit murder. But she also feels like she can finally be understood, which is what she's been looking for all this time. Also, yes, she does date her mom's would-be killer.
I'm serial designation N. Nice to meet you.
N is a golden retriever. That's it. That's pretty much everything you need to know about him. Well, that and what if you gave that good boy a machine gun and then forced them to confront serious ethical and moral quandaries? He's perfect. Together, these two and the third wheel work together to uncover the mysteries of the absolute solver, how it relates to the murder drones, Uzi, her mom, and that one time the planet got nuked. The two things I think the show does really well is action and its haunted house horror. It's not devolving into full-on jump scares, nor is it getting into full existential dread. Instead, it's a scary ride that managed to excite more than it terrifies. There's creepy stuff in it, but most of that manages just be nightmare fuel that unsettles without trying to really shock you. The direction for the action horror sequences is always top-notch, as they pretty much always nail what they're going for, and are somehow able to do it without really destroying the more comedic meme-filled tone. There isn't a bad episode in this season, and I think that needs to be applauded. Though, if I were to give my one main scruple for this show, the one thing that kinda never went away as I watched it, and right, this is just a me thing and maybe don't kill me over this, but the mysteries. They're not great at paying them off. Again, this isn't a full problem, as I think the way the story uses these mysteries allows it to just get away with it most of the time, but across the board, all the major mysteries that the show sets up tended to underwhelm me with their reveals. The sole exceptions to this is the Tessa thing and what happened to Earth, as those managed to be both shocking and cool. However, I think the reveal scruple comes into play in that this show has very brisk pacing. Rarely do we give the characters a chance to really process or sit with a reveal, so we as an audience don't really have the time to let that sink in. Or worse, some massive lore-changing info will drop in a borderline freeze frame. You get the idea, it works, but the show that is built around mysteries rarely revels in revealing the truth. I don't think I've ever said this, but I think this show could have indulged in telling instead of showing just a little bit more. There's this weird pattern with MD where it will spend a lot of time building something up, only for us to kind of just be given the answer and have it go under discussed. Like, for example, N spends half the series wondering about his mysterious past. V just will not tell him about this. And then we just kind of start an episode mid-flashback where we are just given the information, which is kind of abrupt. We don't really have the build-up to getting to the thing, and then we get to the actual answer of what is in the basement. It's kind of just a basic,
okay.
Like, the same thing happens to Uzi's mom, who remained an enigma throughout the entire series. We get hints at what was done to her by the humans, only for whoop, we get the answer in another flashback at the start of another episode. And technically finds out about this earlier, but the character that this should be the most emotionally relevant to is Uzi, but she doesn't really have the time to grapple this as Tessa tries to kill her almost immediately. Doll, a character that is built up for so long, always there, seems like a rival, and now she's dead. And in other mysteries, we never actually learn what the absolute solver is, nor do we find out how much of sin, if any, is left in this thing, which gets confusing when they refer to them as separate beings, only for them to basically act the same at pretty much all times. This show really likes its mysteries to drive the plot, but when we get the answers, it doesn't feel like we ever just have enough time to really sit with them. However, that said, this isn't a huge thing, as mechanically the story uses its various mysteries as a way to get the characters to be where it needs them to be, giving us cool settings and sequences that are consistently fun. I have my scruples with this, but you always get the gist of what's going on, even if the details are a little bit murky, minus Doll's fate. That was a huge disappointment after they gave us one of the best sequences in the show.
That can't be it. Where's the rest of it?
Truly, this is the show's only L that they didn't do intentionally. Thankfully, the action always makes you forget about it. This might as well be my segue into talking about the finale. It slaps. Now, it's important to keep in mind that this episode is essentially built like a part 2 rather than its own thing. Episode is the action-packed finale to everything that happened in Mass Destruction, which goes a long way to explain why it is as fast-paced as it is. We have a breather in the opening, then dive headfirst back into crazy, with the momentum not stopping till the credits do. If I had to fault this finale with anything, is that I do think that it could have used an extra 2 or 3 minutes to just wrap up that epilogue. Expand out the credits into maybe a more montage montage type thing. But besides that, I am too well fed to be bothered about anything else. Uzi starts off flying in space, Sin has begun devouring the entire planet, with everyone but the teacher freaking out about it. Then after the mother-daughter texting message where, okay, this does bother me. Did I miss the actual explanation for why Uzi can just resist the solver? Was it just her gaining confidence in herself and being able to keep the devil out? As this does tread on something that I've noticed where the show has been consistently inconsistent about explaining Uzi and how she's able to resist the solver. Uzi will go from fighting for her life to maintain control, only for N to just show up, or she'll just get bitch slapped by her mother, and then suddenly it'll be no problem. I'm not annoyed by this, but for how much the story secretly hinged about this patch, about how much, oh, Uzi might be taken over by the solver is played up so much, them just saying, okay, no, she's good now. I was like, wait, really? I was kind of just waiting for an explanation, and we just never got it. I'm like, okay. The shot of them coming down is hype, her speech is cool. Like, no, really, what's up with this? Okay, no, we're just moving on. Might as well, I'll do the same. On to N, finally getting to justify his outfit by remembering how to fly after his wife swept him off his feet. Truly, Newsy is adorable. I don't think it's as deep or layered as some of the other ships I've talked about, but when you want a simple ship to squee over, the right kind of polar opposites, the color scheme, this is always gonna do it. They're just cute. It's effectively the actually healthy version of whatever Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter could have been if not for the realism. Newsy is good. Newsy is life. Don't think I'm gonna do another video about them, as I have very little to add other than it's canon. It's like officially canon for the third time. We've done this song and dance before, moving on to something a little bit more shocking, and by that I mean not in the slightest. Alright, F's in the chat for everyone who actually believed V was a goner. Yes, they bust out the sad music, but that just means it's a fake out. Said before, but V was way too out of focus for her to be an actual casualty that episode, and her death wasn't abrupt enough to be for shock value. But I'm just happy to have her back. V is just too much fun, and probably dating Lizzie, so her coming back to save the day is great, as we need somebody to fight Jay. Now, if I'm gonna give one more hot take, it's that I don't know if the story ever did enough to justify bringing Jay back. She was fun in the premiere, but outside of the flashback, she spends the entirety of the series just hanging out. She's there to like really lend legitimacy to Sin's whole cover. But other than that, okay, I definitely think if like they did bring her back, it would have just truly been a case of wasted potential. But Jay is just here to be a mini boss with one great line about how they can't escape the solver even in death. Something that actually feels poignant given her own death and resurrection. Not to mention how the solver is made from a skin suit of her only real friend's corpse. But the VJ is pretty good, though it would be a lie if I didn't admit that this random raptor stole the show from me. Like, this should not be as funny as it is. But between this and Newsy's burning confession, it's no wonder this fight didn't have any room to really take root in my brain. The stuff around it is just too good. Newsy's again a cute bunch of dorks, though their crazy is balanced out perfectly by the solver as this unhinged horror movie monster. The reveal that she was Tessa is probably one of my favorite moments in the series, and my love of her design was only heightened here, as besides an amazing performance by Alana Fitzgerald as Sin/Solver.
Hello, Uzi.
Hi, N.
I adore all the creepy facial expressions we got out of her. These massive psychotic smiles, this one random little one, the memes. The solver screams, "I'm a villain," and loving every second of it. There's no tragic backstory here, no reason why maybe we should think she has a point. No, she's just here to be terrible, and I appreciate that. The solver could kill Uzi at any point early on. It straight up tries, but she just can't help herself but to indulge in playing with her food.
First, Eager Beaver. Let me in, 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 let me in.
And again, the performance is amazing. The gore and horror scenarios continue to delight. Uzi gets her heart ripped out by someone other than her father, and nearly suffers the same. Never mind, get one last true scary sequence where they're trying to run from her only for V to come in at the worst possible time. I love how despite knowing all of the Solver's tricks, N still can't take the chance and tries to warn V. It's so sweet and so stupid. And he nearly dies from it.
Stormy way.
Sadly, this is where I have to admit where Uzi's donor is actually useful. Yes, I was praying for this man's death the entire time I was watching this episode. Link in the description. Last plug, I swear. Everything looks awful. Till it doesn't. Uzi arrives, the extras participate, and we watch our girl give her I embrace my weird self speech, and also she's bi.
No one traumatizes these weirdly hot robots but me!
Glad you're not dead or whatever.
Good for her.
Now, let's be honest. This fight is hype. I'm pretty much a sucker for any scene with a kick-ass soundtrack to it. It gets me hyped like nothing else, as I know I'm gonna go back to rewatch this scene more than anything else. Is it a stim thing? Probably. But here, it's just peak. The way everyone's powers are being utilized, Sin's illusions keeping things freaky. The small breaks between the major action moments just give us a breather. I think we could have cut the handshake scene, but hey, it's still funny. Murder Drones has been a lot of fun, but there's really nothing else to say other than the fact that this show, they cooked here. My only real note is that Jay got tossed out like a bad appetizer, and I didn't realize she was gone till she popped up in the credits trying to leave. Everything else about this fight, again, fire.
Wrong team.
Also, another minor thing that I enjoy about the conclusion to this fight is that for all the Solver's glee and eldritch abilities, she can't help herself when it comes to this fight. She doesn't want to just kill Uzi's harem. The Solver needs to have a blast while doing it. We never see her get worried or frightened this entire fight, minus a quick kick to the head. Every other time, she is grinning ear to ear as she thinks she's got this, as she has giant tentacles that can probably wipe out everyone else. But instead of using those, she again decides to play with her food. Yes, she's going hard, going for headshots constantly, but she's having a blast. She always needs to throw in some mental manipulation to truly just take things over the top. But this proves to be her ultimate doom, as someone finally gets wise to her tricks and breaks her heart. Get that last sweet scare, Uzi eats her heart, and GG. And that's kind of about it. And if you were like me, you thought, okay, we have, oh, it's over? I'm kind of surprised they didn't milk is this Uzi or the Solver when Uzi initially first woke up. She's okay. Story comes full circle with her giving a presentation in class about her little hero's journey, and is being adorable in his supportive kind of way, but he also learned how to draw, which we all know is true character growth. But from here, we just go credits. We just get a quick wrap up of all the iconic moments from the show. We see little glimpses into the future. V and Lizzie are spending lots of time together, and Uzi are obnoxious couple goals, and she's hanging out with her father, so family was repaired. Hooray! The mom settled again. Doll's still dead. And we get one final shot of the Solver being an Uzi to scare the shit out of us. Overall, I love this finale. Murder Drones has been a lot of fun. I had some small scruples, some stuff I think they could have expanded upon if they had more time. Like Sin, was she ever a person or was she just always a puppet of the Solver? We don't really know, but in the time constraints that they had, I thought the whole thing was pretty cool. Love that people are giving the show its flowers, and it is getting the views thanks to the Digital Circus stimulus package. And the word out on the street is that we're gonna see these characters again at some point, which I will never turn down. As come on, ends perfect.